I've been having to do that for the last several months. I bought this car, that was the original battery that it was in here, and we have to jump it every time I need to start it. Battery is always a problem around here. I have a part for this vehicle that I've been needing to do an install video on, and that's this guy that you're seeing down here. Now, many of you have been following us from the VTech Academy. This battery box idea was spawned from the Budget EF. From that model, I came up with some other ideas on how to make it a little bit more universal, and it's probably the most universal that it's ever been. But to get this on, this style actually tucks underneath the bumper. Now, this is essentially designed for a K-Series. All K-Series, you end up having to remove your battery because the engine mount actually consumes the same area as the original battery. Where are you going to put it? So there are options like putting it all the way in the trunk, or what we're going to do is put it near the starter. That's going to reduce the amount of wiring that we have to deal with. The alternatives are sticking a battery in the back or in the trunk, or figuring out something for yourself. Now, personally, I prefer the battery near the engine. It helps keep the weight in front of the tires. To start off, whether you have the original front bumper or our EF three-piece here that you see, the bumper is going to need to at least come out of the way, and I still have the factory air box that's going to be underneath that bumper that will need to be removed. Battery's out. You could remove the battery tray if you want. I'm going to remove it since I won't be using it, and otherwise it's just going to be unsightly. That's going to leave us with some space here. That'll make some sense in the future why I wanted to do that. Alright, that's the area that we're talking about right there. The box was designed to bolt in like right here. So this part right here is a part of my front end. But on a stock car, there will be something similar here that the stock bumper support would kind of hook onto. Either case, the box was designed to utilize these two bolt hole locations right here, making it somewhat bolt on. But we made some changes. It's not limited to just the front anymore. We could actually offset it back or use this on an entirely different chassis that doesn't use those bolt holes. We added a second tab, but we left the bolt pattern the same. So you can still use that if you wanted to, but we offer a second tab, and these tabs will start making a little bit more sense, so just hold on. Also, a different feature that we added on this, we added some speed holes here on the side. We can lighten it up, and we also added a weep hole. The others was flat and would collect a lot of water, so we listened to you guys and we made the changes. Our hardware kit also includes the riv nuts that weren't in the kit before. Now, when I say riv nuts, that's what these are right here. You're going to use this, you're going to drill holes into the body, and then you're going to attach these to the body, which then give you a threaded insert that you're going to use. The tab will bolt onto the side using the supplied hardware. You make them snug, but it doesn't need to be tight. That will give you some wiggle room to make sure that it attaches to the body better. And so traditionally, as designed, it would bolt up here, and then the rear would attach to some riv nuts back here. So there are no holes on the back side. Alright, let's move it out of our way here. Alright, you can do it a few different ways. You can bolt it up front, okay? If you needed a little bit more room up front, you could bolt it behind it, catching those two holes, and then bolting it from behind. That's going to give you about a ½ inch of more space if you need it, okay? Or you can offset it with both brackets like this, and it could essentially work in any chassis. Now, when using one of those smaller Odyssey style batteries, or in our case we're going to be using a full throttle, there are all kinds of flat fitting battery boxes that you could use. In an EF, there's not any flat space big enough for one of those batteries in this location. That is the point of the box. This box tabs has an offset, and that offset allows it to essentially reach over the hump and contours that you see there. Now, I'm running my wide body front end, and I know I have plenty of room. I can move this box to the front, that front location that I was mentioning earlier. But if you're using a stock bumper, we've noticed that those with 9091 bumpers, there's like a little, I don't know, like a superficial air duct that then hits the battery. And in those cases, you could bolt the box on the opposite side using those bolt locations, or use the provided extra tab. But when you add the extra tab, it does offset the box, and you'll have to pay attention to how close your tire is going to be at that point. And that's essentially the reason why we're using a smaller box in that area, so that we have plenty of room for our tires. Another neat feature that, if for some of you that either have the boxes or are thinking about it, these tabs aren't limited to having to be on the outside. You can flip those on the inside, giving you that much more space. So check this out. It could either be like this or like that. And that right there will let you get really tight into areas. Let's say if I wanted to put it back there, I could, using 2 rib nuts. For the purpose of this video, I decided that I'm going to use both brackets to exploit the versatility of this new box. And where I want to mount it, I predetermined that and then applied the brackets where it would work best for the scenario. You see right there, that's how it's going to work right there. I have plenty of flat spaces to add our rib nuts on either side, and that's what you're going to be looking for no matter what chassis you decide to put this on. And if you look down in there, you'll see that hump that it's clearing as a result of the offset design. The holes are slotted, allows you to at least try to get your striker in the center, but will give you some wiggle room if you're offset a little bit. I painted the area to make it look a little bit more uniform, and now this is our rib nut tool. It's a really simple, inexpensive tool. Some of them is actually going to come with the rib nuts on there or with them, but you know, our kit's going to include the rib nuts that you need, and this makes really easy work of it. Stick it in the hole and clamp down. All right, not bad. We got 4. And what's awesome about rib nuts is you'll end up putting rib nuts almost everywhere. You know, when you start swapping stuff and, you know, you just can't find bolt holes where you want them, you just add them, just like you did right here. Alright, the battery box is on. It's sturdy. We just had Chris take a look at it, and he shook it pretty good. I mean, it's pretty solid, man. So the next thing that we don't have yet available, but definitely are working on, is making the battery cables work. We sell the battery as of right now. We're selling them just like that. There's no extra fittings, and the fittings that you use, or at least the adapters, is up to you, and allows you to build what you want. But most people prefer total packages, and we're working with somebody right now so that we can have these readily available. We make the boxes, and the boxes was something that we just came up with the need to have to move the battery. But when doing that, other things are also required, like battery cables. So we're working on that. We got the batteries. The cables may come next. So we're just going to show you what we're going to do here. I mean, we're not able to do this at scale just yet, but what you'll see me do is the options that you may have available to you from us soon, or at least they'll give you an idea of what you can do and make on your own. Basically, we're going to mimic what we have already. We're going to change the wire out with something new. We're going to make it to length and then add our own ends on them, but we're going to install it essentially exactly where this one is, and so we're just going to follow it along. We take this ground strap right here, then we'll connect it down there to the chassis and then over here to the transmission, and then we're going to do the same thing with the power wire. One's going to go to the battery, and then there's going to split off to the starter and then the fuse box. Now, if you had butt connectors available to you, if you wanted, you could just clip the ends of these off and extend them on your own. And I'm almost considering that because I do have barrel connectors, and then we won't have to add so much wire to the end of that. I mean, you could also do that with this as well, and now I'm thinking about actually doing that. This barrel connector I'm getting ready to add, I got from Napa. So they're available there, and I'll link a part number below. This part, you might not have a big giant guy like I do, like this. So this might be a little bit impractical for you, but there are crimping tools out there that you can set in a vise that essentially do the same thing. There we go. That's a crimp right there. So I'm going to add my extension there, but I'm going to add a heat shrink over that as well. So I have a roll of 4-gauge wire, and this wire is essentially like welding wire because it's like super multi-stranded, so it's really flexible. And so we have reels of this here. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut the end, and I should have put this heat shrink on first before I cut the end. I'm going to bring it up through the battery area up towards where we're going to make the connection, making a route and get us into the bay. Check that out. See how universal this could be. I mean, essentially with the rib nut style offset, this is going to fit so many different chassis. We have a DA Integra here that we have this on. We have a CB7 with this on. We are getting ready to put this on a Prelude. There it is, man. Simple. I like it. The next phase of this is going to come up with some provision so that we can jump this box without having to take the bumper off every time. And that's going to look something like this. These right here are remote battery terminals, so you could essentially install these just about anywhere. Right, so we're going to work on something where we can install this to it so that it's easy access, you know, maybe something like a bracket that holds them right here or something or other. I also want to install a battery kill. These batteries, they're smaller. They work great, but they do get some flack at times just because as people who have the smaller batteries say that they always die and they're always having a hard time getting them to charge. And that is true, but what I believe what is happening is everyone who's using these batteries has a parasitic draw. And then on the forums they'll also say something like, well, it never did that with my stock battery, and that's probably true. The stock battery is larger, and so it has a larger charge capacity rather than these smaller ones. So I also want to install a battery kill so that I'm not going to have any parasitic draws on this, which would extend the life of my battery. That will be on the next update, maybe part 2 of the battery install. You could find these batteries and the boxes available right now on our website, and in the future I hope to have a battery cable system. Stay tuned to part 2 because I also want to include the remote terminals and a battery kill in that same kit. Guys, like always, happy tuning. Quick update. We did all of this to the car because I needed to get it tested for emissions. It's still stock right now, and so before I start messing with it, it's probably a good idea that I get this at least registered. But in doing so, I did have a discharge on the battery, and that is something that I had just mentioned, that is a common thing. There's so many different factors involved in that. And we actually had a discharge issue after going to get emissions, and come to find out our main issue was the alternator. The alternator was stock replacement. I believe this might even been a Napa brand because we end up having to replace the starter on this from a Napa brand that just wasn't working. I do part outs on these engines all the time, and any time that I have like an OEM starter or alternator, those things sell off pretty fast. It's been about 15 years since I had my own car. It's been even longer than I've ever used any non-OEM components, and those OEM parts sell so fast off of our eBay store. Now I'm starting to understand why. Out of the stockpile of stuff that I had an OEM starter, and I had an OEM alternator, and now this thing charges just fine and it starts right up. So thanks again, and like always, happy tuning.